Welcome back to the Identity Woman podcast. I'm your host, Chantelle Branch, and today we are talking about relationships. What is the most important relationship that you have on this earth? And how important, how necessary is it for you to value that relationship, for you to value that person in that relationship? How much will it cost? How much are you willing to pay? And when I talk about cost, I don't always mean financial. What sacrifices are you going to put into this relationship? Or what are you going to sacrifice to have this relationship? Meaning, what or who are you giving up to be in this relationship? When we talk about relationships, we instantly think about two people being together. But the relationship that we're going to talk about today and that we're going to go into today, it is about the relationship that we have with ourselves. We skip ourselves so often. And I wanted to bring on a guest today to help us understand why we cannot skip the woman in the mirror. So I have Coach Michelle Monet Henderson Stewart. She is an award winning speaker, author, and world renowned certified relationship coach. She has so much valuable information and she has mastered the keys to having healthy relationships through her life experiences, through her education, through her spiritual background. And so, Coach Michelle Monet, welcome to the Identity Woman podcast.
Hello. Thank you, Chantelle. How are you doing? Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Absolutely. I am doing great today.
Good.
And I'm happy to have this conversation with you. And as my listeners know, I like to bring on people who are certified, people who are qualified, people who have not only experienced it, but have studied
Yeah.
whatever the topic is. And so today we're talking about the relationship with self. The buzzword is self love, self care. And I'm a self love specialist. And before these, it became the buzzwords, it is just a part of who I am and what I do and how I serve women in my community. And so, one of the reasons I needed to bring you on is because I need you to help my community and the listeners that aren't yet a part of my community understand the value, the need. It's a necessity um, to love ourselves, but we skip ourselves every single day. We put the makeup on, we get going in the morning, we get the kids ready, we take care of babe, or maybe babe already went to work, whatever, right? But then we rush to work, we come home, take care of the kids again. We're cooking dinner. We're into the nightly routine. And so oftentimes by the time you do have a little bit of quiet time, you're too tired to do anything. And
Yeah.
so I just want to start this conversation in on how do we begin to recognize that we are not valuing the woman in our mirror?
Well, as far as one of the things that we have to keep in mind is, I'm a strong believer in the word, right? And the second commandment that we were given is that we have to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And so that simply means to me that in order for me to love you, then I have to love myself first. But we have been taught systematically, or systemically, I should say, that it is not okay to love ourselves first, that it becomes ego, or it is a part of pride, or, we are then thinking above ourselves and things of that sort. We've taken those types of scriptures out of the basis. But if you are consistently giving of yourself to other people without filling yourself up, then one, you're lying to yourself and everybody else. Because in order for you to love somebody truly, you have to be able to love yourself. And if you don't know what that means for yourself, then you won't know how to give that to other people. And so I think that most of us not doing it for ourselves is basically us feeling guilty, feeling like if I give more to myself, then I'm not going to be able to give to other people, or it's going to make me seem like I'm more than I need to be. And that comes from the self-esteem issues that we have. 96% of women across the world do not believe that they're beautiful. And that lets you know that there is a real problem with self-esteem, or esteem, I should say, because I think that esteem truly does not come from self. It comes from our environment.
Wait a minute, she said, esteem does not come from ourselves, it comes from our environment. And I think that's so true. And some of the women that I've been in community with, and I think about them who practice or who have a sense of self-care and they have a habit and just different things that they do. These women I do admire because number one, they're an only child.
Okay.
And so because of that and having all that attention on themselves forever, their whole lives, and their parent having that attention on them their whole lives, it allowed them to, in a sense, master some of their self-care needs. And so she
Mhm.
takes care of herself well. And even if she has a lot of children, she still has this sense of self where, oh no, I have to get my hair done. Oh no, I have to get my nails done. Oh no, those kids, I still take care of them, but I have to go and hang out with my friends. I have to go and do these things. And so I admire them because for me, I always feel guilty. And many women, we feel guilty when we when we don't give to our children first, or when we don't give to our spouse first, and when we put ourselves last, we know that we have sacrificed everything and that we have given so much, and sometimes we equate that as I'm a great mom because I
Mhm.
have given everything of myself.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you are literally left empty.
Yeah. And a lot of women are doing what you said, um, habitually, and not necessarily because they're really giving to themselves. Some people are, I have to get my hair done because I have to go to work, or I have to get my hair done because I'm an influencer, or I have to. And so when you get to the place where you're having to do something, where you should do something, it goes beyond the desire to do it. There's no desire there. There's an obligation there, and that's totally different than you doing it because it makes you feel good, or you're doing it because it helps you feel better for other people. When you're doing it out of obligation, and you're doing this habitually, because you, every 2 weeks I get my hair done, every 2 weeks I get my nails done, it just becomes this system thing, right? Or routine. You have to still check in with yourself to make sure that you're not doing it just because it's routine, but you're actually taking in the experience. So many people go to dinner and they're worried so much about taking photos, or they're going to the nail salon, or that's getting the spa done, and worry about taking the photos of the spa, and taking the photos of their feet, instead of taking in the experience. See, in order for you to really be giving of self-care, you have to be. It's not about you doing, it's about being. And being, self-care could be sitting in the middle of the room, just sitting there. And so it doesn't have anything to do with the things that you actually do. And that's what we have been taught, that as long as you're doing this, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, getting your feet done, and going to the spa, hanging out with your friends, that's self-care. But is it really? And that's something that people really need to think about. Am I really doing this for self-care, or am I doing this because I think that this is the thing to do?
Absolutely. I love that because when I growing up, I went to the salon every 2 weeks
Hmm.
because my mother went to the salon every 2 weeks, and that was her routine. And my grandmother went every 2 weeks, and my aunts. And so that was the family's routine. Um, and the thing was that that was not their gift, their talent. They just were not doing hair, and they didn't spend time doing hair. It was, I'm going to get my hair fixed,
Hmm.
my hair
Right.
done. I'm going to the
Right.
beauty shop, to the
Hmm.
beautician. And
Hmm.
over time, like as a young girl, I definitely didn't appreciate it. I would jack my hair up in one day. I mean, press and curl, a mess.
Right.
Okay? A mess.
Right.
But it was still manageable for my mother, and that's what she needed. She needed my hair to be manageable for her for the next 2 weeks till we came back. And for her, that was even a form of self-care. But I wanted to just bring this point in when you said being in the moment. And a part of my profession, my craft, I've been in the beauty industry 24 years.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest things that I got to witness was the be as the assistant, the salon assistant, and then moving up to my own chair and working in a downtown salon. I got to watch women be. And I
Yeah.
remember women coming in, and these were prominent women and executive women and women in high places in the city of Chicago and coming into the salon. And she would just drop her bags and she would sit in the chair and she would just sit back and she just was in that
Yeah.
moment, having that experience. And I got to learn those women. And so as I'm on this journey, I recognized what this woman needed and what this woman needed. I knew that if she was off today, she was going to be a little more calm, cool, relaxed, laughing. If she was working, it was going to take a little time in her service before she got cool, calm, and relaxed. But by the end of the service, for all of those women, they've experienced euphoria. They've
Yeah.
experienced a release of toxins. They had the experience of not only turning them around in a chair at the end and, oh my God, you look beautiful, but it was them and they were conscious about the experience.
Yes.
They made sure that the hair salon was right under the light bill
Mhm.
because of the experience. Yes, you look good, but it was the experience. And I watched
Yes.
these women for years. And one thing that has happened in the beauty industry, especially as trends have come and gone, is that so many people are into wearing extensions and hair pieces and wigs, and so they have missed such
Yeah.
a wonderful experience that you could have every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And it will
Yep.
also alleviate some of the hair
Stress.
problems that you're putting on your hair because of you're putting stress on your hair, but it helps alleviate that, and you've missed it. And
Yep.
I want women to go back or get with a stylist that can give them that experience because it really makes a difference. If you
Yeah.
can, I mean, I've saw it. I've done it where women have come in one way and left from my chair after 1 hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours, depending on what kind of service they're getting, leave differently, leave
Mhm.
happier, leave lighter because
Yeah.
something was lifted or released or expressed from them. And they
Yeah.
come back and they tell a friend and they come back. And that is missed right now today
It
because we
is.
have we have wigs.
Mhm.
And they had wigs in the 70s, but they still were going to get they were still meeting that need. And so I just want us to look, go back to the salon. No, I'm plugging all the hairstylists. I'm trying to help y'all. But the
Yeah.
be sit in the experience.
Yeah.
How do we stop? America's too fast.
It
Social
is too
media
bad.
is too quick. How do we stop?
Yeah. I just did an event this past weekend. It was called My Sister's Soup Social, and it's going to be a quarterly event that I'm going to be doing. The tag it will be still My Sister's whatever event that will be, and this happened to be a soup social. And I got that idea from when I first got to Atlanta. One of my cousins had invited me to a soup social, and it was somewhere in the mountains somewhere. I remember going up this hill and thinking it's cold out here. They got me walking in these hills, and I was going into places that I didn't know, people that I didn't know. But when I walked into this room, it was the most beautiful sight. It had nothing to do with the aesthetics of the room, had nothing to do with the people that were there and what they were wearing. It was the fact that it was about 50 women in this room, and everybody had brought a different type of soup, and we were sitting around eating each other's food. And I remember back in the day, don't eat everybody's food, but nobody cared about that. People were caring about the socializing, the social part of the soup, and the soup being nourishing, and then the socializing. And when in my event that I had three speakers, myself and two other speakers. And one person talked about the soup. I talked about socializing because of relationships. And the next lady spoke about the self care. What I what we came out of, it was we were so in sync on that, is that we've learned, especially in the whole pandemic, after the pandemic, things really shut us down, where we're not no longer socializing. We don't understand what that really does for us. When we're children, it teaches us to what our self values are. When we're socializing, we it teaches us morals, it teaches us standards, it teaches us those things, and we're not really paying attention to that and how it's really needed in that, because of us being on lockdown. And now that we've come out of that, we're still pretty much doing that. People are still getting their groceries delivered, not really speaking to each other when they see each other in the streets. We don't really understand the why of why it's valuable for us to socialize and why it's valuable for us to connect with other people. um, like you said, back in the 70s, we were doing it. That's how women got their emotional fix.
That's
They got
good.
their emotional fix from their girlfriends. So when their husbands, who were working 8, 10, 12 hours a day, come in, they weren't trying to make him, quote unquote, emotionally available, because they'd already got their emotional fix from being and talking with their girlfriends at the laundromat, or while they were cooking their foods, or while they were taking their kids and back and forth to schools, all those types of things. But we have learned that it's better for us to look good or look like we're socializing rather than us really doing it.
That is absolutely true. And I also believe that because of that, not socializing, being in isolation, you teach your children that. You teach all the women and everybody in your circle that. And so now we have a group of young girls who are, let's post a picture, let's do this. Yeah, and I mean, like, they're getting there, they're old enough to, be legal, and they're finally getting out and just doing some things. But that social aspect. And it's like, oh, I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But are you really enjoying yourself? Did you really
Right,
have a good time?
right. Do you even remember what you did, because you're too busy taking the photos? You're not taking in, again, that experience. We're so for the microwave time of, we want everything very quickly. We don't really want to hear people. You hear people all the time talk about how, oh, I'd rather be by myself, or my circle is really small, or, I don't want to go outside, and all these different things. But why is that? What is happening? And a lot of that has to do with the challenges within ourselves, like you said, with the self care, within us loving ourselves and really knowing the value that we actually bring to other people. Because when you know value, right, it's like, for instance, when you said earlier about how you were plugging the stylists, and you're like, I'm trying to get y'all some business, because you know the value in that, right?
Yeah.
And when you know the value in who you are and what you bring to this world, not just a table, but what you bring to this world, then you want to give people that value. You want to share that value. But when you don't understand who you are and what your value is and what you actually expend to this world, then you keep it to yourself. But it's like any good recipe, any good TV or movie show, anything that you want to recommend, your bug guy down the street, or my lawn guy, or, oh my God, let me tell you about this baker that I found. When you find something that's valuable, it is not an obligation or a task for you to share it. You share it because you know it's valuable. And so that's why I think that a lot of times we're not sharing ourselves with our friends, our families, our loved ones in the socializing piece of it, because we don't know the value. And if I don't know who I am, I'm not going to want to give you a piece of
Wow. And so that's a part of the Identity Woman podcast. And,
it.
like, the purpose of me creating the Identity Woman podcast, it was birthed in the pandemic, May 2020. And it was really to help us begin to look at ourselves and figure out, who am I? What is my identity today? And after that, ask yourself the question, do I like it? Am I in
Yes.
agreement with it? Is this
Yes.
how I want to keep living? Do I need change? keyword, do I need to change? Do I need a change in my life? Or do I love everything about me? I'm so good.
Yeah.
And everybody should love me. And you're just great.
Yeah.
Because when you can look at who you are, identify your need, then the next step is to go after it. I
Yeah.
need to be in a healthy relationship. And so when I moved out of the shelter, and I had just started dating my husband. And
Okay.
I remember being honest with him. I was honest, and I was just saying everything that I needed to say to make him run away. Like, I have this
Mm.
going on, I have this going on, I have this
Mhm.
going on. You cool with this? You can live with this?
Mhm.
Because
Right.
I was in a place where I was identifying who I was. And my number one need at that moment was safety. Or
Mm.
I don't need no man to love me. I need to be safe. So I need
Mhm.
to become self-sufficient, come out
Mhm.
of this shell, to stand on my own outside of a relationship, outside of a man, my parents, outside of my parents, outside of a man, stand on my own, be self-sufficient. That's what I needed. That to me was showing Chantelle that I love me. I love
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And so now, telling my husband, my soon to be husband, we were just dating. But I'm putting it all out there because I didn't wanna have any secrets, and I didn't want anybody to fool with my life and mess me
Yeah.
up anymore, because I knew that I was on a path of rising up and walking into who I am today. I didn't know this version of myself yet, but I knew that it was something better than
Yeah.
being in an abusive relationship, and I was determined to not get in one again. And so I asked him a lot of questions. I looked for all kind of signs. I was
Mm.
just saying anything, doing no, not really, but,
I know what you
um,
mean.
I was conscious of my identity, and so many women are not. And that's why we're here today, because we need you to
Yeah.
help us get
Yeah.
conscious. So if you could leave one thing to a woman today when it comes to knowing herself, taking that step toward her identity, what should she do? Where should she start?
The first thing I would have her to do if she's looking to find out who her self-identity is I would question every belief I have. Every one. Most of our beliefs, like you talked about earlier when you mentioned that you got your hair done every 2 weeks because your mother and her mother did it and her mother did it. Every belief that we have, until you question every belief that you have, you've got it because your parents or somebody in authority or your friends or somebody in your life growing up when you were being shaped has given you. Until you take out the time to question those beliefs and ask yourself, why do I believe this? Is it because somebody told me this, or is it because I truly believe it? This is why this is one, and this is kind of a sidebar part of going into it, but this is one of the reasons why it's very difficult for people to take on affirmations when people are affirming themselves daily and they still a week later after affirming themselves fall right back into the same rut because they are taking on somebody else's belief and they haven't questioned the belief. They haven't questioned, am I really beautiful and what makes me beautiful? Am I really pretty and what makes me pretty? Am I really smart and what makes me smart? What do I believe? And why do I believe that? Am I believing it because I was told it? Or do I really believe it because I, again, experienced it? Once you then go to questioning every belief, I don't care if I believe in God and why do I believe in God? Christ is my savior and most high, but I still had to go through a place where I believe in Christ because I believed in Christ. I grew up with a grandmother who was a reverend. I grew up in the church. I've been in ministry since 1998. So these are things I was told to do. You better do. You better accept. You better do this. You better be democratic. You better what what is my beliefs and why do I believe that? And so once after you get to the place where you now sitting down and not just sitting in your mind, because ideas change so quickly in your mind. If you don't get a piece of paper and some pencils and some pens, some real paper, that the paper with the loose leaf.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, get you some loose leaf. Go get you a couple packages of loose leaf paper and a pen and write down these things. What do I believe? Why do I believe it? And if I don't know why I believe it, what is my new belief? And
Mm.
then going forward. And then after you do that, then you want to then say, okay, so how can I now validate, manifest those beliefs in my life? Because if I believe something, that means I'm actively involved in it. So if I'm believing that I'm special, if I'm believing that I'm enough, then I'm actively involved in being enough. That means I now have to then question all the relationships in my life. Who is in my life and should they be there? Is it a part of my end game? If I say, okay, I want to have these goals in my life and I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be married, or I want to have children, who in my life is helping me achieve those things? And it's not just usury, but it's beneficial for you to question all your relationships so that you can make sure that you're in the right place at the right time. Because relationships can make you fumble your future.
Oh, that's a good one right there. Relationships can make you fumble your future. I think I'm going to use that as a title. Relationships can make you fumble your future.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing those tips, because that is the starting point. That was right where I was living in a shelter, and I was in a place, in a community, in an environment that we met for group therapy every Tuesday,
Mhm.
and then we had to do individual therapy. And um, I was very against individual therapy because of my culture. And
Mhm.
because she was my same age, and here I am in a shelter, and here she is just graduating from college, and my terms therapizing me. And I'm like, and I just had all of these walls and flags up. And so I didn't receive from her. I just went in there, and I think because of our age, she just was tired of me coming in. I had to come, she had to see me, but I didn't allow her in,
Yeah.
and she gave up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that happens, right? But the community, and when I was in the shelter, I didn't talk much people, only like people who were maybe on my floor who just gravitated to me because I had a baby, because I had my baby. Um, but the women who did share in community, they said the words that I wasn't strong enough to say at the time. And so the discussions went around. And so I got that that outpour, that emotional um, stability, that emotional support that you were talking about, we talked about earlier, when you go into the salon, into the laundromat. But that's what I got from that community. And I'm
Yeah.
still connected to some of the women today. And it's so beautiful every time I get to see a post from them, or I get to hear from them. And I'm just, because it reminds me of where we were and how I met them and where we are today. And I'm like, we're so beautiful. We're so
Yeah.
beautiful because we left. We're so beautiful because we learned how to value ourselves. We're so beautiful because we are now, the women that I know are in loving relationships, healthy relationships, and we truly understand our power within that relationship. And
Mhm.
so I want to thank you so much for coming on the Identity Woman podcast. This has been an amazing conversation. We will absolutely have to have you back. We're going to have you back in person, Coach Michelle Monet.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say, tell us, I'm edit that. Tell us how we can find you. And just think of this maybe coming out towards the end of the year of 2024.
Okay.
So tell us how we can find you, what you have going on, how we can connect with you. Okay, so
Well,
uh,
first,
I'm gonna say it. So I was just kind of telling you,
okay. Okay.
so you will know. So tell us how we can find you and we can connect with you.
So, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This was really beautiful, and I really am humbled by your invitation. But you can find me on all social media platforms at Coach Michelle Monet, and my website www.coachmichellemonet.com. Yeah, I am on everything but Instagram because they stole and hacked my Instagram, and I can't get it back. But
Man, man.
every other place, I'm on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, every place you can find me.
Absolutely. And I have read your book. And so you all go and check out her book. What's the name of your book again?
Rejection saved my life, and it's 15 transformational keys on using rejection as fuel. Fuel is an acronym, and it stands for faith upgraded to exponential levels. I actually have another book that'll be coming out the 1st of January. It is called, oh, shoot.
That's okay.
I just had a brain freeze.
No, just start it over. I have
Yeah.
another book coming out. Um,
I have another book coming out that's going to be at the 1st of January of 2024 called Unlocking the Heart. It's a guide, complete guide, because I am for the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a guide to becoming more easy to love. And
ooh,
so it's in editing right now. I got the cover already done, so that's gonna be exciting. I'm excited. So that kind of goes with that whole self love thing in
it
order for me to be
does.
prepared for love. So yeah,
I'm
unlocking the heart.
excited. Unlocking the heart. That sounds good and juicy. We could go a lot of ways with that. I'm gonna make the movie,
Yes,
y'all. I'm gonna make the
yes,
movie. It's gonna be good
yes.
too.
I love it.
Yes. Well, thank you all for listening to the Identity Woman podcast. And until next time.